Good morning, everyone. I'm going to get started. So I'm Lindsay Griffin Boylan, President and CEO of the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank you all so much for being here today. I know we're also streaming, so thank you to those of you who are joining us online. It's a really important day. Really glad that all of you took your time to be with us today. This is I was just reminded by Dan, our 4th annual conference. The first year we did a month-long series. In the past 2 years, we had to be virtual. So to be in person today and start to get some of these conversations with all of you in a room together is very exciting for us. And I really want to thank Dan and Erica, who have led this council for us for the past 4 years. And we're never letting them go. We have them every year, but they have done just such an incredible job. And this was something that really, for us, as we rebuilt a lot of what our chamber did, this was such an important piece to us, really one of the most important pieces, because we know that if we don't have a community and our organization ourselves that is inclusive, we certainly aren't going to get the progress that we want to see in this area. So it really is something that to us is a core value, and for all of you here today that have helped us, I know, on so much of this work, and especially the two of you, really want to thank you so much. So with that, we have a great lineup for you today, but we also are here with our chamber partners, so all the chambers in the region are a partner. I know Amy Leister from the Scranton Chamber is here with us today, so really want to thank them as well, because this has been something that, while we all certainly are focused on sometimes our own initiatives in our communities, this is one thing that we all agree is just, like I said, critically important to the future of Northeastern PA. So I want to thank all of our chamber partners as well. And really also to our presenting sponsor, PNC Bank. So I want to turn it over right now to John Rossetti, Vice President of PNC Private Bank, to give us a few words. But again, thank you for being here today, and we're excited for all of our speakers. John?
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and good morning, everyone. At PNC, we believe that the highest performing teams are diverse, and the most productive and engaging workplaces are inclusive. We also believe that embracing and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion is about being a better company, employer, and neighbor, and an overall better investment for our shareholders. Our commitment to diversity and inclusion begins at the very top of the organization. PNC recognizes that diverse boards lead to better decisions and outcomes for all employees, customers, and communities. Across the bank, we remain focused on building and maintaining a diverse board of directors and continuing to increase the diversity of our executive leadership team. And more locally, in Northeast Pennsylvania, 54% of PNC local leadership and branch managers are women executives, and 40% of our Northeast PA Regional Advisory Board are women business leaders who you likely all know well. This is just a snapshot of the focus and accomplishments PNC has and continues to make in fostering a culture of diversity and inclusion. Even as we share this progress, we know that we must do more to drive change in the areas where we have the greatest impact. That commitment to making an impact is why PNC is proud to be the presenting sponsor of the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Forum. You are making a difference and taking a leadership role in conveying participants from a variety of industries to ensure that we are making our community better through events like this forum and the work that you do every day. And now I would like to introduce Dan Kimbrough and Erica Acosta, Chair and Vice Chair of the Greater Wyoming Valley DEI Network.
Thank you. We are excited for our sessions today. I want to share some housekeeping tips throughout the day for the day as well. After each of the sessions today, you'll have 15 minutes break where we invite you to stretch, network a little bit, get a little chance to talk to the speakers. Also, for those spending the whole day with us, you will have a meal voucher that's good for Rodano's, Cafe Toscana, or La Tolteca. And then after lunch, we will resume with a panel discussion here in the main auditorium. Throughout the day, you'll be able to find the chamber staff or Erica and myself or anyone around to help get you to the rooms that you need to be going to as well. Thank all of our sponsors, who you can see on the screen here behind us. Without them, a day like this wouldn't be possible, so I want to thank them as well.
Thank you, everyone. And to kick today's event, we would like to some energy, moving around, share your thoughts, your conversation. But before we start getting into those conversations, today we're going to introduce Laura Duceschi, the President and CEO of the Scranton Area Foundation, to talk a little bit about the results of their DEI listening tour. And please welcome Laura. I love the pin.
Thank you so much for allowing me to join all of you in this very important topic. And in terms of the presentation, shall I kind of give you a sign when it's time to move to the next slide? Okay, great. I really appreciate the fact that the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce is hosting this, and the strong partnership from so many chambers of commerce in this important issue. I think there's so much similarity in the fact that, you know, I represent a community foundation that is housed in Lackawanna County, the Scranton Area Community Foundation. But, you know, this truly is, as Lindsay said so well, an issue that must be discussed with a regional frame. And so I think that that really kind of sets the tone of why the Scranton Area Foundation, through the listening tour that this is referred to, took a regional approach with our partners in kicking off the conversations of this issue. So what you have is basically a one-pager, which is a preview of a report that is going to be coming out in May that really kind of highlights the entire process, the philosophy, the methodology, the partnership, I said process, but the process 1 and 2, the next steps, and the outcomes that we see in terms of recommendations that should happen in terms of advancing focused efforts and investments towards issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in northeastern Pennsylvania. And so, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. And so, a little bit about the Scranton Area Community Foundation. So we're a 501c3, we're a public community foundation. I'm the president and CEO. We have a team of about 13 individuals focused on issues regarding philanthropy, regarding community initiatives, regarding helping people achieve their charitable objectives. And you know, when we look at our strategic framework, our 3 pillars are: we serve as a grant maker, we help donors provide grants that matter to them in the community, and we work with unrestricted resources to help organizations, nonprofits, community organizations advance issues of importance in Lackawanna County and beyond. We're a charitable resource. Someone might want to set up a donor-advised fund. They might want to set up a scholarship. We help them do that. We help them advance those causes. We work with private foundations to help them move issues forward of importance, of what the community is saying is important. And we're a catalyst for change. And that's our community initiatives pillar. And that has really been a pillar that has been expanding and advancing in the areas within the foundation. I've been in this role since 2012, and I can say, you know, specifically, all of the areas have grown. But that is an area that I've been seeing have been community foundations, like the Scranton Area Foundation, like the Luzerne Foundation, like the Wayne County Community Foundation, have been more frequently called to serve as an anchor institution, kind of that independent voice pulling chambers of commerce, business, industry, community organization, nonprofit organizations, healthcare providers together to focus on issues that matter. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all of the aspects related to that is clearly one of those issues, and that has resonated more and more throughout the years, as it should. Next slide. And so within that community initiatives pillar is the fact that the Scranton Area Community Foundation serves as a convener and a leadership catalyst. So what does that mean? It means that when we're hearing from our partners that there's something that really needs additional focused effort, information on how to make the most significant changes, if we're asked to, if we're wanted, we will come to the table and pull organizations around to talk further about these issues. And so, you know, one of the things that you'll see in your one-pager is kind of a list of some of the issues that we really have been called to, in a way, work at a catalytic, collaborative level. A lot of C's. But, you know, it really means serving as the engine for change if change is wanted, if change is desired, and if people are willing to come to the table and make a sustained effort towards that. And when you look at transportation, when you look at issues of workforce, when you look at issues of housing, there's so many issues where I think the Scranton Area Community Foundation and our partners have hosted long-standing collaborative efforts to make a difference. And so, again, serving as an engine, but certainly not the solution. Bringing people together to decide what those solutions should be, and helping to find the philanthropic and other resources to make change. Next slide. So diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a foundational priority for years. And I can say the first time it was stated explicitly by the Scranton Area Community Foundation was in 2016, when we convened with the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia to set the table in terms of looking at equitable barriers to transportation access. We had heard in grant applications, in conversations with community leaders, in conversations with heads of organizations, that people's ability to access transportation to get to healthcare appointments, to be an effective employee in the workforce, to be able to find economic opportunities, that transportation was this amorphous hindrance to that. And through our work with the Federal Reserve Bank, pulling 75 individuals from Wilkes-Barre, from Scranton, and from other areas to the table, we started to look at why that is, working in terms of looking at a study, mapping out aspects of really what these equitable barriers are, contracting with the Institute to do a study. So it started there, and it started with educating our partners about what it means to look at transportation from an equity lens. And it started with a privilege walk, getting people together to really understand when you have mitigating circumstances, such as you're a mother who is trying to make sure that you get your children to school, and you have to have a certain shift, maybe your second shift, and maybe the buses don't run at that time, and all of these mitigating factors. To really put 75 people in a room to say, hey, this is your situation. How would you deal with it? How would you get to work? How would you get your child to school? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, was eye-opening. And I think it became the catalyst for a lot of our collaborative work in terms of framing these issues with an equitable perspective. And you can see through the trajectory that that then led to attainable housing, that then led to workforce access, equity being a key core component through all of those. Next slide. So, as usual, I get a little ahead of myself and I speak before the slide, but the first paragraph illustrates NEPA moves, which is that transportation effort. The second showcases how it then moved to the fact that you can't talk about equitable issues to transportation without talking about attainable housing, because they're interchangeable, and they both need to be viewed with an equity lens. Because so much of what we uncovered through our work with the cohort that we led with partners from Geisinger, the University of Scranton, the Institute, NeighborWorks, NEPA, the Housing Collaborative, et cetera, showed that there truly are structural barriers to attainable housing. This is not something new that we do not know. I'm sure many of us in the audience know that that's the case. There's barriers in access to capital, to be able to purchase a home, to be able to purchase a safe, quality home. There's barriers in terms of affordable rental properties. And we commissioned a study on redlining with the Institute to look at, within northeastern Pennsylvania, how has redlining impacted displacement of communities, impacted accessibility to quality home ownership, and that kind of set the tone for our work moving forward. Next slide, please. So through our work with this cohort, again with the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, because this work just continued, in the Reinventing Our Communities program, we started to learn with conversations with various funders in Wilkes-Barre, in Tunkhannock, in Hazleton, that there is a desire to make an impact in issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but in many cases, there's not enough of an understanding of how to make those impactful investments. So we took it upon us at the foundation to work with partners at the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce, at the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce, at the Wayne County Community Foundation, Geisinger, Martin Luther King Commission, and other partners to come to the table and say, you know, we're going to start a series of conversations to look at what those points of impact could be, where philanthropists and other funders can make tangible investments, can put efforts. And you've already heard some of them. Issues of board governance, right? That's a huge topic. That came out of the roundtables. And I'll go a little bit through them, but again, this is just a preview, as the report will be out in May, and so this is kind of just giving you a framing of this. A lot of the conversations that we held in Scranton, in Wilkes-Barre, in the Wayne County area, generated after, and you could go next slide, please. Generated after we hosted the NEPA Learning Conference. And the NEPA Learning Conference is definitely a regional conference. Maybe some of you have participated in that. You know, we work with so many of our partners here to make that happen. Again, it's regional, and the focus is making sure that we're helping our nonprofit and our civic partners create learning organization. And what does it mean to be a learning organization? Any ideas? Any thoughts? Yeah. Absolutely, and I couldn't have said it better. And then I think when you're doing that, you're then centralizing a culture at that organization that says, we're going to collect this knowledge and we're going to set up a process to continually educate and empower our employees to continue to learn. So thank you for that. So I think, so this came out of the national theme of what it means to be a learning organization. And it's going to be our 4th year this year that we're carrying on. But in 2021, apologies, it's a biennial conference, our key theme was issues of training around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we brought in Race Forward, which is a national organization focused on issues of structural racism, and hosted workshops for 200 community participants to talk about, you know, how organizations, individuals, businesses can start to frame their work with a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And what does that mean? Well, it's best said by those that work directly in that space and can frame it. But what came out of it was that there was a hunger and there was an energy to start deeper convenings and conversations. And so what you see outlined here kicked off in early January 2022 in Lackawanna County, hosted by Dr. Leah Palmeter. And I think Dr. Palmeter actually spoke or keynoted at one of the recent convenings that the Chamber had within DEI this past year. She's renowned in the space. She led and facilitated these conversations. We then moved into, we could move to the next slide. We then moved into conversations with Wayne County, partnered with Community Foundation of Wayne County, worked with Lindsay and her team at the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce. You know, each of these roundtable conversations had 40, 50, 80, 90 participants, depending on the conversation. And the key part of making them successful were that it wasn't just the Scranton Area Community Foundation, or it wasn't just the Greater Wyoming Valley of Chamber of Commerce pulling people to the table. It was working with the Scranton Chamber, MLK Commission, Geisinger, the Institute, other partners that set the tone that this is an important conversation that needs to be had. And so 5 of these conversations were held throughout this period. And what rose up, and again, these weren't themes that we set, that we defined were important. These are themes that came through pre-surveys that said these are the topics that need to be discussed at these conversations for which the next steps and the action steps must come. And so these are obviously workforce practices that advance DEI, issues of health inequities and how race, ethnicity, and other aspects of diversity impact that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in K through 12 education. How do we create more welcoming communities? Methods to advance economic opportunities, such as what are the barriers preventing economic advancement? And issues regarding what we just mentioned, governance issues at board level, networking opportunities or lack of. Next slide. And so from those themes are recommendations. And from those recommendations are next steps. But what's included in the report are a series of action opportunities that funders can invest in now, that organizations can convene around now. And so while our goal is with our partners to put out this regional strategic blueprint for next steps and for action items, there already are some themes that rose to the top. And so I'll give an example of about 6 here. Next slide. And so one of the themes that came was that there truly should be an equity commission, potentially at the city level, that has the ability to have leaders from diverse communities lead, to advise, to handle the RFP process to make it equitable. And I won't go into a lot of the details, but we're already in conversations with the city of Scranton to look at how an equity commission can potentially be instituted in partnership with the foundation. So again, while some of these recommendations might seem like they're Lackawanna County centric, one of our key goals is to make sure that they are replicable according to our partners that are in those counties that have had the ability to convene with us and garner this information in terms of their notes and their reports back. So we're not going to put out anything in the report as a recommendation that we don't feel from our conversations with our partners is truly Northeastern Pennsylvania centric, not just Lackawanna County centric. Another aspect is an equity profile. Now, what does that mean? Well, what came out of the conversations are that within each county, there should be a more streamlined process of access to qualitative and quantitative data that organizations can work with to understand more within that area how an indicator can be created to advance equity. Next is in terms of how tangibly we could invest in inclusion in Northeastern Pennsylvania, welcoming communities, new communities, intentionally, investing resources to create these intentional opportunities to welcome various communities by investing time, resources, effort into this so that it doesn't feel as if various communities are not a part of various business gatherings, various community gatherings, etc. That was another theme. And all of these themes, again, are just samples that arise out of these key issue areas. Next slide. Another aspect I think that's really important, and I think it's because I view this from a philanthropic lens, is that ideally there really should be a giving circle, a council or a fund that brings together community resources, community wealth, and is led by individuals, leaders from communities of color that can direct where these resources can and should go. This is not a new concept. This is something that happens in communities across the country. Many times it's generated by philanthropy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all directed by one foundation. It's an opportunity to make sure that resources are going to the place where they are going to create the most economic and other impact. And another one, this will be my final one before I wind up my presentation, is making sure that we're creating scenarios within our K through 12 schools, and one of our key partners with this would be the Scranton School District, to think about how we're identifying individuals to come in to the schools to talk about opportunity areas in workforce and careers that create situations so that students of diverse backgrounds can understand and see and relate to the individuals speaking with them so that they can see a place within those opportunity areas. And this is something, this is something that really isn't a heavy lift, right? It's just being intentional about how we think about these things. So again, these are just some examples. I look forward to not only putting out this report, we're extremely grateful to our partners for being a part of this, but also about what the next steps can be in terms of moving some of these issues forward. So with that, I was told I'm 15 minutes, but if there were questions, I was given the ability to ask if there's any questions. So you tell me if time-wise, okay. Okay. And maybe there isn't any questions, but I'm happy to answer questions if there are. Next slide. Again, big thank you to our partners in this work, helping us move this forward. And then our last slide. Thank you. If you'd like a copy of the report, all you have to do is email info@safdn.org, or you could email me, Laura. I'm Laura Duchessi, LD, very simple, at safdn.org. So if there's any questions, happy to answer them, and if not. All right, well, thank you. I'm happy to be a part of this extremely important topic at this conference.
Thank you, Laura, for all that great work you and your collaborators are doing to move the DEI lens forward, because it does take a village to get this work done. And the more we interact and participate and do the surveys and engage in the community, the more impact we can do. So as we transition to our breakout sessions now, our first session is going to be right here, and it's called Dash